I know it's the craziest thing I talk about.
Okay.
The craziest thought process I have. And I'm strong convictions about it, but I know it's crazy.
Welcome back to Poutine Politics, Canadian issues served with cheese curds. My name's Adam,
My name's Mike.
and today we're going to talk about something fun.
So this has always been an intriguing topic of mine that I've spent many of a debate and seen many of a peculiar look on people's faces when I tell them my philosophy on this. So I have a philosophy that generally says this. I have no problems with hunting. I have no problems with people that are hunting, but I'm morally against fishing. And what makes it more fun is the fact that, yes, I have fished before. Yes, I have hunted before. I no longer hunt. However, know lots of people. My brother fishes, my nieces fish, my stepfather fishes, both my daughters fish, and yes, I have a fishing license.
For a very specific reason, though.
Yeah, because my girls can't fish without it.
Right.
Right. When I tell people this, the peculiar looks and the sideways glances I get are amazing. And usually, even after I talk to them about why I say what I say or why I think the way I do, they go, okay, I understand what you're saying, but you're still crazy. And I perfectly accept that answer, but it's not going to change anything.
Right. So, I guess I'm assuming you're going to get into this.
Mhm.
Some people might hear this and be like, "But this is a politics podcast. What does this have to do with politics?"
So, where it comes into politics is the issue of hunting as a general activity and how hunting is regulated. For instance, there's commercial hunting, trophy hunting, and then there's people that hunt for food, we'll call it. Okay.
Yep.
And I don't mean they're desperate to eat, but they hunt because they want to eat that meat.
Yeah. I guess you could call it. I mean, it's not completely correct, but you could call it subsistence hunting, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yep.
And then fishing, kind of the same thing. Commercial fishing, which is much more prevalent. Sport fishing, and then fishing to eat. And people always just go, well, why do you feel so strongly about not fishing personally and feel hunting? And the best way I can describe it is that I was always taught to never harm an animal. I'm a meat eater. I don't pretend to be a vegetarian of any kind. Adam is a vegetarian, and kudos to him for being a vegetarian because it certainly makes him healthier than I am.
I'll just say for the time being.
For the time being.
For the time, I mean, that could change, and I guess,
right.
Yeah. Anyways, whatever.
Okay, right. And people be like, "Well, do you know how they get meat to your plate?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm well aware. Like, it's not like it's shocking to me." And for the commercial aspect, I'll touch on that right now. If it's done correctly, I have no problems with how it's done. And by correctly, I mean if they're taking all the pain out of the animal in such a way, and they can do this, and they're supposed to do this, I should say, then I don't have any issues with them how they process meat. Because when you do it right, you're supposed to basically make the animal feel nothing, and then that's fine. I don't really care how it gets processed. I understand how it gets processed. It's not like it's shocking to me.
Right.
Like people are like, oh, just watch the slaughterhouse video. I'm like, yeah, I've seen them. I field dressed animals before. Like, this isn't a big deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with that. So basically what I say is that whenever you want to compare hunting, the thing that I always grew up with was I don't want to hurt an animal. If I'm going to go after an animal for meat, I want it dead. So I don't want to have to chase an animal because chasing animals, one, is annoying.
Yes.
And two, it's just not what I want. Like the idea of hurting an animal does not appeal to me in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
So one of the big reasons why I stopped hunting was because I wasn't good enough with a rifle anymore to ensure accuracy. And I was never comfortable with hunting with a bow because if you're hunting with a bow, and I'm talking about bigger game, a deer, oftentimes you don't kill it right away, so you have to go track it down, which I don't know if it's caused pain or not, and I really don't like that idea. And a moose, there's just no way to kill it instantaneously. If you've ever seen a moose, you'll understand what I'm talking about, which is why people that hunt with bows on moose, I'm like, what are you doing? That moose is huge. So the attitude my dad always taught me, it's like you don't want things to suffer, so you want things as dead as possible. And it also saves you a little bit of hassle of chasing after an animal, which, is not fun. Well, I've had to track an animal, and which is basically where you follow the blood trail. and this sucks.
Yeah, well, that's
Yes,
what I was going to
sucks.
say is that you could if you end up wounding an animal. I mean, who knows how long before it finally kind of gives up. Let's say before it doesn't
Yeah,
have the energy to keep going. And in the meantime, what is it going through while all
right.
of that's going on?
Right, you've traumatized the animal, like to a certain degree, and usually, most times you get a lung shot, and a lung shot just means you collapse the lung, and the animal will die. And it usually doesn't feel pain because the lung, it's not going to feel pain, but still sucks. I want that animal dead. So, with that being said, if you look at fishing and you look at fish that fish do feel pain, which it's been proven that they do, the equivalent would be taking a harpoon, we'll say, throwing it out there, having an animal latch onto it with like a hook, grab it by its mouth, reel it in, fighting and screaming for its life
Yes.
as much as it can, trying to get off of that line, and then suffocating it,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
letting it off the hook while it's suffocating, like putting it in water, let it suffocate for a bit, and then letting it go back and run away. That's what fishing is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I have a moral objection to it. I personally will not pursue an organism that I do not have the ability to kill on the spot. I'm also willing to pursue an animal that I'm not willing to eat. So I'm not just going to go out to shoot something for the sake of shooting something. There's targets. If I want to shoot a gun, I can just shoot at a target.
Okay, so actually, let me ask a question along those lines.
Shoot.
Because like you said, not hunting an animal essentially that you wouldn't eat or something
Yeah.
like that. I know there are people that make a big deal about, say, the people that go and do the trophy hunting in Africa. Okay, they go on these chartered trips and they go out and they hunt whatever the animal might be. And there is a lot of outrage about it from people that they see it as cruelty to the animals, and I understand that viewpoint. But I also have read enough to know that in a lot of these cases, those animals, most of them get used by the people that are organizing those trips, like whether it's a particular village or tribes people or something like that. They're going to use the meat, they're going to use the skin, they're going to they use everything. And the problem, I guess, is that people get outraged because they see the photo of someone taking a picture with the carcass of a lion, and it's like, yeah, but that lion does get used. And I guess the other part of it too is that the reason why those groups or villages or whatever run these hunting trips is because not only is it the meat and the fur and everything else, it's the money, right? They're helping their people. So I guess the question I have is, if you still were a hunter,
Mm-hmm.
and something like that interested you, like maybe I'd think about going on one of those safari hunting trips. Would that be would you feel that would be against your current moral code?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
I've already addressed, yeah, it's the caveat that this is, I'm not going to eat it, so why am I hunting? Some people get a thrill out of hunting, and I get that, and I can't ignore that fact, but that's usually not why I go hunting.
Okay.
Like I usually want to have the meat. However, with regards to trophy hunting and a lot of other things like that, I recognize that for social and economic reasons, people who like outdoors are often the best conversationalists.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I have negative moral objections to what they're doing, that doesn't outweigh the benefits that it represents. So I'm never going to say that you're a fisherman, all fishing should be banned. Okay. Because I know how much productivity from the environmental standpoint comes from that. Because the reality is that those people from different organizations that feel that hunting or fishing is immoral don't have the financial means or financial willingness to put into saving those environments.
Right.
Ducks Unlimited Canada, places, an organization like that, do everything in their power to save wetlands and all these different places that you just can't get with anything else. And just like the trophy hunters, oftentimes trophy hunting, I can't speak for every single circumstances, but most trophy hunting locations, yes, they do benefit the locals. Yes, they do benefit all those things, but they also benefit the individual animal that they're pursuing. And the reason why they benefit is because, one, it's a controlled hunt.
Yeah.
So they're not going to go after, they're not going to allow too many, which is why it's still lucrative. Two, Oftentimes that money that's used up for it often goes back into that particular species and helps them out that way too. So oftentimes you're saving 10 for 1.
Okay.
And from a pure economics or a pure statistical standpoint, that just makes sense to me, right? If you don't allow that small town in wherever to go have those trophy hunts, they're going to find money somewhere else. And oftentimes that means that they have to encroach on that land.
Right.
So, yeah, I wouldn't personally ever go out after an elephant because I don't see, like, wow, I killed an elephant. Great. Good for me. I have a high power rifle. It's not like I took it down with my hands. Like,
but would you, if you had to go out there and it was and you had to do it with your hands, would you do it?
like I don't see I don't get the pictures. Either A, you're going to believe me or you're not. And if you don't believe me, I'm not your friend.
Right.
Like, who am I showing to? Who am I pandering to? Like, it's for your own self-image. Well, I know that I've done this. I don't need anyone else to tell me I did this, right? Like, you're just trying to project. But to say that those people don't exist, to ignore that those people exist, is just silly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you're all going to be perfectly moral. No, not everyone's going to be perfectly moral. Not everyone agrees with me. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I respect your disagreement. Are you having a benefit to society, though? Yes? Okay.
Okay, let's try a couple of other questions then. So from a commercial hunting standpoint, and
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't know.
Commercial hunting's not really that prevalent, but
right? And I guess
commercial farming is more prevalent.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I mean, this isn't necessarily commercial farming per se, or commercial hunting, I mean, per se, but like, let's say something like the seal hunt. Like, obviously, again, I know that that's something that you wouldn't partake in, but what are your thoughts on the seal hunt?
It would depend on the reasons for it. If that particular Inuit tribe was doing it for their entire lives and as a part of their means, and they live cohabitively with those seals, I don't have any problems with that. And it's also about management too, which is the same reason why if you're going to have a hunt for something, there's a reason why they only give out so many tags. And I think a lot of people don't realize this. When you go for a deer hunt, they only give you so many tags. So you can only pursue either a certain type of animal. So you can only pursue like the male as opposed to the female.
Right.
And they only give out so many tags for each one. So you're limited sometimes in scope. Well, it depends on how many deer are in the area. Now, some people say, well, they intentionally inflate the numbers of deer. Why is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there's more deer around and you have a problem with this? I don't get it. I don't get that logic.
And I mean, my limited understanding of the tag process is that the number of tags that the Ministry of Natural Resources determines to have available for sale has to do with, quote unquote census data, as it were, for the animals that are in particular areas, right? Yeah,
it's a population number. It's just basically we're going to try and keep them under this amount because we think this amount is healthy for that environment.
Right.
So that way you don't have the same population crashes. They don't have the same dips and ups and downs that you would under normal circumstances. If you have too many of one animal in an area, you can kill almost the entire species in that area.
Right.
Or if there's disease that happens in that area, you can kill the entire species for the exact same reason.
Mm-hmm.
Any deer hunter doesn't want to kill every single deer. Whereas developers don't care.
Right.
They don't care. They want the space for them all. So who's the one that cares about the environment? And a deer hunter also knows that you can't just have a deer sanctuary. You also have to have a place for them to eat. So you need all those ecological systems along with to make that deer healthy. And all those other things have tertiary benefits to every other animal around. You're not going to see, if you eliminate hunting, you're not going to see that the government's not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to do whatever business says. And business says, let's expand. Well, goodbye wildlife.
Right, right.
So if you care about wildlife, you should care about hunting. You don't have to want to do it, which is why I have a fishing license. I don't have anything wrong with people who fish because I know that it helps the water supply. Like, I'm aware of this for the exact same reason.
So then, commercial fishing.
I don't eat fish.
You don't eat fish at all?
Mm-mm.
And that's tied into your belief with fishing, I guess, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Very much so. Like, there's just too many problems with it.
So how long?
Far too many.
How long has that been the case, do you think?
Even though it'd be better for my diet?
Well, I mean, you can
10, 15 years.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm not saying that I won't have fish.
Right.
I'm not that person.
Okay.
But at the same point in time, no, it's been 10, 15 years.
Okay.
There's no way that you can do commercial fishing on a large scale where it's not just the most terrible thing in the world.
Well, and I guess especially when you consider how much over the years there's been, like the illegal commercial fishing and things like that. Well, it's like case in point for Canada, the collapse of the fisheries in the Grand Banks, right?
Yeah.
So, that's a situation where commercial fishing, or quote unquote commercial fishing, because obviously again there were illegal operations and or what was it? I think one of the things that was going on there was that Spain, there were fishing companies or vessels from Spain that were coming over to the Grand Banks, and they were fishing without permit or something like that, if I remember correctly.
There's been all kinds of cases of fishing, but then again, there's still poaching and hunting.
Yeah.
I'm never going to agree with a poacher.
Right.
Right. And those are people that are either hunting out of season or hunting with illegal tags, and they just don't want to say anything.
Right.
Every hunter knows a hunter that poaches. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality.
Right.
Like, I don't want to claim like, oh, I don't know anybody that poaches. I'm like, yeah, I do. Unfortunately, I do. I would never hunt with them, but that doesn't mean I don't know they do.
Right.
And it's just the same thing. Like, the problem with commercial fishing is my moral objections to it. Fishing, however, eating wise and the dietary is much better for you. Fishes will always be better for you than beef. So it's kind of hard.
Yeah. Well,
but I still don't do fish.
Yeah. I have to admit, I guess I had a similar viewpoint with you in regards to eating fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seeing, whether it's the way that commercial fishing is done, and the fact that that's where a lot of the fish that we have comes from. I didn't necessarily see it from the same viewpoint of, say, like that pain and suffering of the animal. Like, that's kind of for me, let's say, with the fact that I decided to go to a vegetarian diet. My choice there wasn't because of the suffering of the animals, right? That my choice there was, it was a health thing. I'm like, okay, well, I'm reading and seeing a lot of things that say that a vegetarian diet, or going that next step and going to the vegan diet is a lot better would be a lot better for not only for most people from a health related perspective, but then also would have its benefits for the environment.
Because, huge.
Right? Like, I guess, let's say with the environmental side of things. So the issue I have, let's say, with the large scale farming with cattle and pigs and things like that is, it's not necessarily just the animals themselves. It's all the farming that has to be done to feed them, right?
Yeah, it's like you remove all those trees,
mm-hmm.
and you also consume so much water.
Yeah.
Like, there's just, people don't realize how much water it takes to have to make a steak, and it's insane.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so as a person who likes to promote environmental things,
mm-hmm.
and I've long been that proponent, should I be more standards towards having less beef than I do now? Probably, but that's something that I have to come to terms with, right? Like a lot of things, if you don't know what's going on, you don't really realize it. So the reason why I bring this up is that you may not like hunting. You may not like fishing. You may like fishing. You may not like hunting. Whatever. Don't care. That's your opinion. You're allowed to have it,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, I'm allowed to have the opinion of crazy talk that I'm adamant that fishing is terrible and that hunting is perfectly fine. And most people would be like, you're insane. You killed the animal. I don't kill fish. I put them back. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Right? I get that. Like, that's a very good point. Like, I can't argue with that fact. That's how you look at things. Yep, you're right. I'm killing it.
Yeah.
And I make no bones about that. If you've ever been deer hunting, you understand that it's 8 hours of boredom.
Followed up with like 30 seconds of action kind of thing.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
I went hunting 2 years and I walked a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my 2 years of hunting.
Yeah.
Because I was the pusher. And what a pusher is the person who walks around and pushes the deer into other people.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, you see the deer. But usually you don't. You just push.
Right.
And when you're the youngest and the lowest on the totem pole, guess what you get to do?
You get to walk through the bush all day.
But it just, that's what you did. But I mean, in fishing, I understand that there's a tranquility about fishing. Some people like it when you have lots of hits on the line. My daughter loves that, which is why she likes fishing. But, it's not for me, and that's fine. Yep. But the point of it is that at the beginning of the day, who is going to look after nature the most? Is it going to be the person who says, I'm against hunting? No, because they're not putting any money into it.
Right.
If you eliminate hunting, they wouldn't put any more money into nature. They would stop instantaneously and expect it to be fine until the developers like, hey, we're going to make this mall here. We're going to ruin all this nature for you. And you get to save 50 cents on your whatever. Well, you're going to take it.
Or in the case of where we live, it's more likely we're gonna pave over it and build a whole bunch of houses, and you'll be able to buy one of these new houses, but they start at $400,000.
Yeah, these new houses. Yeah, there's gonna be a whole bunch of new houses, but like you mean, so that way more people can live there, and more people. And that's what happens. You just sprawl out. So it's called urban sprawl. So, but unless you get people saying, no, I want this wetland capped because this is where this habitat. It's not going to change it.
Right.
And the only people that do that are people that have that. That's why we have the Ministry of Natural Resources. But they only have so much power. But the more money they get from hunters and anglers, the more money they can spend on it. Yep. Which is why I have no problems having a fishing license, even though I will never fish again.
Right. Yeah, because you're helping to fund it, basically.
Yeah. I'm choosing that choice. Right? I'm making that choice. And that's why I say I know this thought process is crazy, but it's your convictions of who you are should never be judged based on how other people think of it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right. So if you were fond of something and you have the moral integrity to change your opinion, and my opinion has changed over time, obviously, because I did fish.
Yeah, at some point you did.
Right? I fished and I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. It's not like I was like, I hate this is so boring. Well, it was boring, but I like I'm not gonna die. Fishing was boring. Oh man, that was the part I didn't like with fishing. I like to say that when I'm talking with a topic like this, I come from a point of I did this, so I know what I'm talking about.
You have experience.
So yeah, I wanted to bring it up because it's a topic that I always find fascinating. It's fascinating to me. So I imagine it's fascinating to other people that are like, what? What? The man's crazy. I like the guy.
I think they knew that before we got to this topic, though.
Hush you.
Well, hunting and fishing with a little bit of farming and diet and all these other things that we talked about here. But anyways, hunting and fishing. Not hunting versus fishing, hunting and fishing. Thanks for listening. My name's Adam.
My name's Mike.
We'll talk to you soon.